transportation, a work obligation, because it was lost, because whatever their reason is, they get to vote a regular ballot and fill out and complete the declaration process. So that's where you are watching voters as they come in and as they go out to make sure that they are clear about that information. And, you know, frankly, too, we've been fortunate to get information from poll officials inside who know about the accurate process, and they'll call us, too. If they're hearing other poll officials telling people the wrong information, we're getting information from people on the inside saying, I know that there's a federal court order and it says something very differently. So they're not telling us the right information. And that's another way that we can learn about things. If a voter doesn't have any form of ID when they show up, they should go home and get it, right? They should go home, and if they have the photo ID, they should go home and get it. If they have a utility bill or a bank statement or some other alternative, they should go home and get it. If you are, again, someone who has a photo ID, but you did not bring it, you can vote a provisional ballot in lieu of going home. If you're someone who doesn't have a photo ID and you didn't bring it, and you are not willing to go home and get an alternative ID, you can cast a provisional ballot, but you can't cure it. That's the distinction between the photo ID and the non-photo ID. You can only cure the photo ID that you left at home. You can't cure the non-photo ID that you didn't bring. So that's why you want to encourage people, if they have the time, if they have time to take off from work, if they can go home and get what they need, come back, because again, that's the way for you to vote a regular ballot on election day and not have to come back or do any other subsequent action. Are there any questions about photo ID? I'll be on my cell all day, so this is something I've literally probably answered about 50 to 100 questions about since it's been implemented, and I was part of the, whether good or bad, was part of the process for creating the language and creating the affidavits. I actually understand it quite well and what's required. So if you have any questions about it, please call me. And if you have any issues with people being misinformed, please let me know either by email or phone, because I would immediately let the state know that that's a problem.
What is your cell number?
My cell number is 646-645-5342. So again, so far, that's about the only issue so if you have any questions, call me. If you have any, that's the only question that I really ask that you do call me, but there are other questions where you, again, if it's a voter registration or polling place issue, call the 188 number or use your smartphone. I'm talking next about machine malfunction. That's another thing where I want you to try to address it yourself, and if not address it yourself, go inside, address it yourself by going inside the polling precinct or going to the Secretary of State, because those are things that need to be remedied immediately, or else you're going to lose voters. So if a machine is malfunctioning and you hear voters coming out and saying the line's too long, I can't wait, they only have one machine because one's broken, or they only have one machine, they don't have enough resources, that's something that you'd want to step inside and ask, what are you doing to move this process along? Because I'm seeing voters leave the line because there's not enough resources. You can also, with the contact sheet that we've given you, contact the County Board of Elections or the Secretary of State and say, a machine's broken, is it being fixed? Or there are not enough resources here, what are you doing to bring more resources to the polling precinct? That's something that you don't need me to help you with. You should try to address immediately, because again, we don't want to lose voters. Now, polling officials have the ability to, if a machine breaks, pull out paper ballots, and people can vote with a paper ballot. They can also vote on that, the sheet that they're basically siding into the machine, people can vote on that too. So if there are machine breakdowns or machine malfunctions, there are other ways for people to vote in the short term until they get a technician to come and fix it. Because again, we don't want people waiting around or leaving, because they may not come back, or if they wait around too long, you may lose people. So that's a common issue that we've seen in past elections, and I just want everyone to be aware that there are things that polling officials can be doing if that's happening.
Here's a problem that I ran into last Tuesday. Gentleman called me from the polling place. Machine number 4 at the county building, when he got down to where it asked you, are these the individuals that you voted for? Everything was there except for the presidential race. So I had him to call, at first I had him to get with the individuals there at the polling place to make sure that it was happening just with that machine. And it was. The individual there did it twice. Same issue. So they called Mr. Sullivan, and they actually took that machine offline. But how do we know that? I voted on Monday, and when it asked, is this who you voted for, I just looked at it and everything was and I just went on and hit the button. I really didn't scan it and read it like I should have.
So that's what you should be encouraging voters. If you think that's an issue, encouraging voters when you talk to.
Yeah.
When you go inside, make sure you have your IDs out. If you have any questions, make sure to ask them. If they're not answered inside, let me know. Make sure you get a regular ballot under almost all circumstances. And make sure you check your ballot and that who you push the button for is what's on the tally at the end. We have seen allegations that people have voted for someone and it's voted for one particular presidential candidate and the other name comes out. And upon inspection, it's actually been voter error. They've actually touched the wrong button. So sometimes things can look like they're fishy, but it's actually voter error. So we want to encourage people to actually check what they're pushing before they basically say it's complete. And if you're experiencing, again, if you're interacting with voters as they come out to make sure everything went smoothly, and you're interacting with a number of people who are like, I pushed these buttons and it didn't come out on the form the way that it was supposed to, then that's the time when you go inside and you say, I'm seeing a couple people who are having discrepancies between who they're voting for and what's coming up on the sheet, and that's when you'd want to get an official involved. Those are things I also think that you should elevate beyond the people inside the polling precinct. I would definitely let the county and the Secretary of State know if you think anything fishy like that is happening, because that is a bigger issue, and we want to elevate that as soon as possible. So, yes.
So what you're saying is that there has been some legitimate concern about ballots that were not correct or that there was voting error.
Yeah, so I've seen.
There's a lot about that on the first day.
Yeah, so I've only seen this through reporting in some of the counties where people claimed, I voted for Trump and it came out Hillary, or I voted for Hillary and it came out Trump. And upon further investigation, it was voter error. But if you think it's something more than voter error, then that is something that, again, that I would like you to elevate immediately to county, state officials, and maybe even the state attorney general and U.S. attorney general. But we have not seen that to be a widespread problem. In fact, these allegations that there's all this fraud happening is actually not true. And we really want to work against that, because those claims of fraud are always directed at particularly communities of color, and it's not true for the most part. It tends to be voter error. If you think it's something different, please elevate it, but I don't think that is actually an issue that is about some shenanigans as much as it's about voter error. But we can arm people with information as they go in to just make sure when you're voting that the people that you push are what shows up on the ballot. And that's a way that they can help protect themselves as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure. Okay, we're getting close to the end, and then I'll take questions. There's just a few more things. Again, people who have disabilities, whether that is a physical disability or they have language barriers under the Voting Rights Act, they are entitled to assistance. So if that's a family member, if that's a child, if that is a friend, they are entitled to assistance inside the voting booth. And it just can't be their union rep or their boss, people who would have some basically bias or control over them. So if you are being told by anyone that they were not allowed assistance to voting. That is a violation, potentially a violation of federal law. They are allowed